Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sunday Social. Got a full house today for what will hopefully be quite a fun one. We're going to talk all about movie watches. So whilst you're watching this intro, let us know in the comments section your favourite movie watch if we missed it or maybe we've got it. But let's start with a wristwatch check. Mark, you're in the hot seat. What you're wearing?
Okay, so today is the Speedmaster, the green. Very, very nice and rapidly becoming my favorite Seamaster.
Yeah, I saw the blue ones yesterday, except for the Pro Prof. I saw all the other blue ones. That's quite a cool color combination with the loom as well. That's sort of aqua. But anyway, Pete, you're up next. What are you wearing?
The Seiko tuner.
Oh, nice.
Nice and simple. One of my quartz cornerstones. I don't really go in for the whole Garter watch, pick it up, run away without thinking very often. You know, I liked the idea of sitting down and just being able to wind it, but having that one watch that you can rely on out of a collection, like having one zoom lens or one adjustable wrench, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I've always that blue watch I always try and stalk, but the prices have really gone up on those, the blue version. Dave, you're up next. What are you wearing?
I have my Snoopy on.
Ooh,
very nice.
On the black strap, which kind of makes it look much darker, but this is the black strap from the latest gold Speedmaster, which has got the, I think in the inside, is it in the inside? I can never remember. Yes, on the inside. You probably won't see it. This camera won't be good enough, but it's got like a texture of the surface of the moon on the inside, which is quite nice. But yeah, it's comfortable and it looks better in the summer than it is on the bracelet. So that's what I'm wearing.
Yeah, it looks cool. Seiko Todd, you're up next. What are you wearing?
All right. So in order to celebrate a little bit about what we're talking about in some way, I have my button that says "I survived Barbenheimer." So yesterday was my youngest son's birthday, and so we went and saw Oppenheimer in the morning, did some lunch and drinks, and then saw Barbie.
So they were doing it as like a double feature.
Yeah, we even have T-shirts made up, which I didn't bring them down. So in order to do that, I have two military aspects today that just came in. One of them is I have to do this. I'm trying to figure out exactly the age, but this is a radium loom Bulova.
Okay.
A military with the military, script on the back, which you can't read with this camera. Sorry. And to celebrate the latest Oppenheimer, which has not one but 6 Hamilton watches, I just got this in with it, which is a Hamilton. Where's Patrick when you need him, right?
Yeah.
24-hour Hamilton pocket watch.
Wow.
Military issue with you can barely see it with the crystal just came out. It's actually keeping really good time. I can't quite get it. But it also is radium loomed. So I'm putting them over here, not too close to me. I'm not putting them in my lap or anything like that. But actually, you could strap on this little Bulova. It's a small guy. It's probably like 32, but it's a nifty watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've got one radium pocket watch that I keep at my parents in the loft. So
yeah, don't sleep with it. Don't put it by your head.
Not in your pocket.
Night, you can see things. Yeah, don't put it in your pocket. Don't do that.
On that bombshell, Todd V, what are you wearing?
Fun summertime watch. It's one of my Seiko 5s that I love with the ice blue dial, and have it outfitted with the strap code Jubilee because Seiko bracelets. So this is beautiful.
Awesome.
That's lovely.
I'm wearing this the G-Shock silver, all metal. Yeah, a nice little trade with a member of the live stream crew. So yeah, really like this one. Awesome. Okay. Right. So we're going to do movie watches. We've got our picks. Again, let us know your picks in the comment section down below. But I'm going to get Seiko Todd to kick us off, because this is what was the genesis of the entire thing, and you picked the watch, and I include it in the thumbnail, so we've got to talk about it.
Yeah, so there were 6 Hamilton watches used in the latest Oppenheimer, and the ones that I had them listed here. Hold on. Of the 6, it's not ones that I'm normally familiar with.
And they were vintage, weren't they? They weren't recreations, because Christopher Nolan usually has
something made. These were actually not even from Hamilton. These were from Hamilton aficionados that Hamilton keeps in contact with. So these weren't actually Hamilton's watches. These were owned by individuals that loaned them to the movie to be used, which is really they helped source it, which is really amazing. So the ones that you see there in order are, and I had all this set up, and of course now I can't find it, but so yeah, he wears, so Cillian Murphy's character, which is Oppenheimer, wears a Art Deco. Yeah, they're all Art Decos, right? A Cushion B, an Endicott, and Lexington models. So in that order, that's what you have there. And then Emily Blunt, who's Kitty, his wife, wears a Lady Hamilton A2. And then Matt Damon's character, which is Lieutenant General Leslie Groves Jr., has a Piping Rock, and he has a military ordnance one, which could have been similar to, like the little Bulova I showed you. But if you want to know more about Hamilton watches, look at this.
Oh.
So if you can find this book, I got this used, Don Sowers. It's a complete history of Hamilton from 1892 to 1992. And I found some of the watches in the movie are, of course, listed in this book here. So it's really, I just love the history. Nolan does, obviously he works with Hamilton a lot, and he goes out of his way to make movie watches, but this wasn't so much making a movie watch. This was being true to the heritage and time frame of that time set of the movie. And they really did a great job.
Yeah, it's really good. It's good that they got it from watch collectors as well. They borrowed them from watch collectors.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think in the UK you used to be able to do that with your car. There was a service. I don't know. It never got used anywhere, but I don't know. Morris Minor, that I registered it on some kind of movie site where if you've got a classic car, they might use it for a period piece.
Right.
Okay, yeah, they're great picks, and I used them in the thumbnail, so thank you for picking them. Next up, I'm going to jump over to Pete, and Pete's pick was the Breitling.
Which is just flat out a watch I want to own. So it appears in the movie. You can see it on his wrist, but it's in no way a character or part of the movie. Not even sure if it necessarily fits what he does particularly well, but it is, the Breitling Classic Abbey 765. Interestingly, though, it's the platinum one with the blue dial. It's just a gorgeous watch. I just love it. I must admit, I'm kind of ambivalent about reissues. Because I'm quite comfortable buying the original. I don't, except when it costs too much. I don't really like seeing reissues particularly. So if you are going to do it, mess with it, modernize it, make it platinum, make it blue, make it prettier. That's my take. And I just love what Breitling did with the platinum blue dialed 765.
Yeah, I like it. The film is Bullet Train, isn't it? So it's quite a recent one. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it did it. I don't think it got the traction it was supposed to, but it was very well written, and it had a real star-studded cast as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought the movie was really good fun, and I think a lot of people wanted more from it, and so it's one of these things. I think disappointment tastes really horrible. So when you want more from something, you end up disliking the thing more than perhaps it's worth. I thought Bullet Train was a perfectly fine, fun movie, but I think it got panned a bit because people wanted more from it.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it. It was just, the story was he was just a reluctant sort of hitman, wasn't he, in it, Brad Pitt. and he played the part awesome as well. But
And
anyway.
that watch never would have survived that experience, as Pete said. He needed a G-Shock. He would have destroyed that watch.
Actually, funnily enough, the watch probably would have been fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even at the end with the but we won't talk about the end. Anyway, spoiler alert. Anyway, okay. So next up, Dave, I'm going to go to you, and this is very timely as well. This was the OG Mission Impossible watch, which TGV quite likes quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like. I'm a bit of a G-Shock fan and Casio fan for that matter, and I just thought this was a pretty appropriate watch. You know, like obviously, Mission Impossible's turned into probably one of the biggest franchises in the movie world. But actually, to be fair, they've done more than two, and they've progressively got at least as good, if not slightly better, than the original. And I think the fact that they used this, and to be fair, have continued to use some quite, I guess, low-key watches, is pretty true to the character and stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty cool pickup, this one. And if anyone wants one, you can still pick them up for about $50, you know, so they're not exactly expensive, but it's a cool little piece, this one. So yeah, the original of that movie is still the best, to be fair. It's a bit like the Bourne Identity. The first one's always the best, but I guess it's because it sets the narrative for something that you weren't expecting. So yes, this is a cool little watch, this one.
Yeah, and I forget the guy, Simon Pegg's character in it. He wore a Tissot, didn't he, for quite a few of them?
Yeah.
Tissot watches, the Annie Digi Tissot watch. I remember that was quite featured quite heavily as his gadget of choice. Yeah, that was a really good pick. That.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone ever owned
one of those up?
Yeah.
That one, I've definitely got at least one of them kicking about somewhere, because it's one of those ones that's, to be fair, you buy it because it's a bit of a cool looking watch and it's just a beater and you don't need to stress in any way, shape or form about it. You know it'll survive, but it's not the end of the world if you lose it.
Yeah. Speaking of watches you can beat up, Todd, you're up next. Todd V with your.
I just love this watch. First of all, I'm a child of the 80s, so of course, if it's got Arnold on it, I love the watch. But my son actually just picked one of these up in that blue and red bezel, and I like it even more now that I've had it in hand. It's one that I need to eventually add to my collection, because it is actually a great sort of analog G-Shock kind of a watch. It's just so much functionality. Love it.
Yeah, I think somebody at my work might have worn one of these when he was in the Navy, when he was a Navy SEAL. I tried to ask him about whether he still got it. But yeah, because the modern one is larger, isn't it? It's got the screw down pushers and things like that. It's more overt than this one.
Yeah, it is, but it is surprisingly, it's the Seiko move. Like, it's big, but when it's on wrist, it fits just right. The lugs being so tight up under that shroud, it's actually it wears maybe like a 42 when you put it on, as opposed to how big it actually is. Yeah.
So Thomas is saying, I've got one of the original Seiko Arnis. They are awesome.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had one in Commando, didn't he? But for one of the scenes, I think they hollowed it out, didn't they? And then put like some weird, just like 3 LCD things when he was counting down his daughter being.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, when he jumps out of the plane and survives.
Yeah, of course. I haven't seen it in a long time, but that does sound right. Or, it's both in Commando and Predator.
He clicks on it, and it's basically just like 3 numbers. It's just they hollowed out the watch, I think, and it's like 3 numbers. So it's
a fantastic watch, especially now with the solar. It's just never have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Mark, we're going to you with another affordable watch, I would say. It's the Citizen. Where's it from, and why do you like it?
Well, this is a Citizen that they released in, I think, 2011 or 2012. The sources seem a bit confused. It's not that affordable, or it wasn't. This was $3,500 to $4,000 on release. Wow. And it's one of their very first watches that had satellite timing. So rather than atomic clock timing. This would take the timing from satellites. It also had a very clever ring solar cell. So it was kind of ahead of its time, but it actually comes from something that's not actually a movie, but there's a 13-part anime based on a movie. So this is from Appleseed 13. As anime go, it's forgettable. The movies were much better, but as watches go, it waves its hands at you for various functions. They seem to have disappeared completely. They're not often for sale, and they only made about 900 of them. So, as an experimental piece with some really funky design, even for Citizen, whose design can be questionable at times. I was trying to find another polite word, and I was waiting for Pete to say something. But even for Citizen, this is a forthright design piece. But I think it's great.
I was going to say aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive.
Challenging.
Challenging. That's the word. Thank you.
That's a good one.
Challenging. I was waiting for that word.
That's
but
good.
Yes.
Cool. My first one up here is a watch that I've bemoaned before because it was a missed opportunity, but it's another Christopher Nolan one, and it's the Tenet watch, which I wish they would just make this watch. This is their is it Sub-Zero or whatever the actual watch is called from The Martian, but for the Tenet film they had this giant. They were quartz, obviously, and had the giant countdown timer in the middle, which, if you haven't seen the film, is very, very important to the plot. And I don't know why they couldn't have just knocked this out. I think, did Tenet do okay? I think it did okay. It's certainly worth them.
Tenet did well. The only thing with these was they weren't real watches. The watch was real in itself, but the actual countdown part, I think that's why they never made them, is that you can see the little box in the wires, and they had to run the wires up their sleeves and have this little kind of battery pack taped to them to allow the kind of counter to work. Mm-hmm. So the reason it's never been sold is that they just didn't actually bother to make it into a real watch, although you can buy the watch without the counter on it.
Yeah, it looks like, actually, that one looks like it's had a bit of fire damage from it's a bit melted up the top. Yeah, I think I really like this. That would be awesome if it was the time and maybe a time and then a countdown, and they did both versions, because it's so integral to the film, that watch, that it seems almost a shame that they never did it. And the original Murph watch, I think, had a battery pack, didn't it? Or it had some kind of mechanism in it. So
it did. It was a prop. Yeah. It was entirely a prop.
Yeah, sure, they can pull it off if they wanted.
Same as quite a few of the Omegas, to be honest, from not so much now, but the kind of middle part of the original ones were just straight Omegas. Then when they got all the little lights and the little firing things, they were all just props at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sam's spot on. Yeah, the movie version was 10 times smaller than the one Hamilton released. Yeah. Well, there was also the Martian watch.
Yeah, I think sometimes it gets even outside of the world of props. I mean, Breitling had that the Super Ocean that was based on the slow timer chronograph, and a lot of people were getting all up in arms over, if you're going to do this, it should have the actual chronograph movement as well, as though they're going to redevelop an entirely new chronograph that'll sell to like 5 people around the world. And I think Hamilton would have been in the same position here. I think you'd think it's cool right up until you saw the price tag of that watch with a bespoke. And then you would say, what are you doing? Yeah, this should have come in a $50 case.
Yeah, that watch as well. I'm pretty sure that watch was out for a good few years before the movie. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a new model for the movie or anything. I think it was at least 4 or 5 years it had been out.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because the Martian was well ahead, wasn't it? Of the Martian was well ahead of
Tenet, right?
Tenet,
yeah. Now, of course, Hamilton went back and made the Murph because of the outcry by the watch community. Really wanted the Murph, so they made one. Yeah. You don't even know.
And then they made the smaller one.
They made the smaller one.
The smaller one. Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't put the date on it. So
Easier to, I was going to say easier to make a time only 3-hander.
Yeah. That wasn't a stretch
True.
for them.
in a highly
Yeah, that's just repackaging something they've already got.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did used to do some funky digital ones. They had like a touch one that was like Annie Digi, I think, and you touched it on the side instead of having buttons. But anyway, Todd, Seiko Todd, we're back round to you, and thank you again for picking this one because I also included this one in the thumbnail. And this is the
Bolton.
yes,
The reissue of the Bolton. So this is actually a reissue. You can go to the Hamilton website and you can buy these, and they reissued it in quartz.
Yeah.
Which
okay.
is interesting. It's a beautifully done recreation of the original Bolton. And so, which you can still buy today. It's probably more properly sized for today's wearers now than the original is. But yeah, it's a quartz watch. I only seen the quartz one. I don't know if they're going to make a automatic or a manual line version. But yeah, it's a beautiful watch. It's perfectly, I think, suited for the character.
Yeah.
I've been that's another one that's kind of been on my wish list, but I think as I remember the lug length is the lug to lug is very large. I remember thinking like it's too big for a watch that looks like that.
Yeah,
really,
I forgot what the
right.
dimensions are.
It's just like a reverso sort of stuff. So it's 27 by 31.6.
Oh, that one's smaller than the one I was looking at. Maybe I was looking at one of the automatic versions like that.
Yeah, possibly. Okay, yeah, another good pick, and thanks for. I've not seen the film yet. I know there's been a big sort of outcry, hasn't there, about the actual whether the story's any good or not. And I know Disney reshot it a lot, didn't they? Including they completely reshot the ending. So I'm not going to rush to the cinema to see it, but I am interested.
It's good.
In seeing it.
It's good. It is good. Yeah. It's as long as you go in expecting just an Indiana Jones film, then you'll be quite happy.
Yeah,
I think it's going to lose Disney a lot of money, though.
Yeah,
it already has. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mission Impossible knocked it off, didn't it? Big time. It's killed its momentum.
Barbie and Oppenheimer seem to have killed off Mission Impossible as well. so Mission Impossible could lose a lot of money too.
Yeah. Cool. And then I think, if I'm remembering by order correctly, I think it's Dave, you're up next. Let me just check. So this is the Glass Onion, Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty. It's a bit of a left field model in the Omega range, mind you. I think they're sold out now. There was two of them. There was the center seconds and the sub seconds versions of them. This one, the sub second version, when it was released a good few years ago now, it sold out pretty instantly, and the center second one took a little longer. I think it's basically the 1948. They only did 1948 of each model, but one of them took slightly longer to sell out. It's a really nice, relatively faithful reissue of that kind of 1948 style watch that they did, which was, a lot of people forget or don't necessarily know that Seamaster was the first family of watches that Omega did. It wasn't Speedmaster, it wasn't anything else. This was the first range that they actually did a family in. I think it's, again, quite an appropriate placed watch to be used in that movie. And I like the fact that this one, kind of, if you look into it, it's a bit of a nod to Seamasters originally weren't dive watches, which most people just assume Seamasters are dive watches, and that's not where they came from. So this is quite a nice 38mm in modern version, kind of nod to the original Dirty Dozen watches and the kind of service issued watches, and then the ones that became production models just after the Second World War.
Yeah, no, I really like that one. I like the film as well. I thought the film was really good.
It's a great they've both been really good, actually. Both those films I think were really good. A little bit of a low-key films as well. Didn't kind of get huge news necessarily like a lot of other big hits did, but I think he was amazing in it as well. How the hell he held that accent for the whole film, I do not know.
Yeah. I always think of Steven Seagal tried to pull off that accent, that sort of. And it was horrendous. I forget what film it was in, but it was ridiculous. Cool. I'm just looking at comment. Ken, I tried to remove your comment, and I might have accidentally put you in timeout for 5 minutes. Posting like spoilers for the end of Indiana Jones, and I was like, naughty. I haven't seen it yet.
But I was what did Kent do to get banned?
I know.
Yeah,
I didn't.
because you actually say banned, not timed out.
I think I put you in timeout, Ken. And sorry if I banned you, I will unban you. It was an accident. I was trying to delete the comment quick.
Oh, the power!
Anyway.
Oh, the power!
I saw his comment. I was like, boy, Sam got mad about that.
Well, it was a ginormous spoiler. I mean, hopefully it was a joke, but anyway. So Ken, apologies. Anyway, anyone's going to wonder what I'm not encouraging. Nobody post spoilers about Indiana Jones. Anyway, okay. So up next, Pete. Pete is the Monaco from Le Mans, or 40 years worth of every single tag advert since the film.
Yeah, look, it's funny. People often talk about the fact that, Rolex does the advertising for the entire watch community, and that the reason that there's a watch community at all is because of Rolex. And if you like, to counter that argument, I would put forward the tag Monaco, because for a generation of people like me, this is the aspirational watch. This is the movie watch. This is the coolest thing ever made. And I was shocked that by the time I got around to telling you what my selections were, that this one was still on the table. It's that simple. From the time I was a kid, this picture was in my head. It made me watch the movie, which I then skipped through for everything except the race scenes. It's fantastic. I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it as well. I was a huge Steve McQueen fan. I mean, the fact that I think Tag really milked it to death, though, in my opinion, on the advertising for this for years, except for when they got a new CEO who probably didn't know who Steve McQueen was, so they stopped in the last couple of years. But yeah, an amazing watch. Don't know if anybody else got any comments before I.
Nope, I'm with them. Same thing. The racing chronographs are awesome.
Yeah, cool. And that was the actual one that went up for sale. So it went for over 2 million there. Okay, and then I think it's I forgot. I'm going out of order here. I think it's Todd. Todd V next. Todd, Men in Black.
This is a watch. This is the one that I keep wanting, and then I always chicken out. I can't tell how that's going to fit on my wrist just because of whatever those flares are at the top and bottom. I love the basic case shape, and I'm not sure how I feel about the extensions, but I love this watch. There's just something about it I just find so intriguing. I feel like it would be a real conversation piece if you wore it. Most people don't care what watch you're wearing, but if that was on your wrist, I think people would say, "What are you wearing?" And I just think it's a real statement piece, I think.
Yeah. Did Elvis wear one of these, or is that a different Hamilton?
No, I think he did, but it was smaller.
Yeah, that was.
It was the Ventura, I believe.
The Ventura, yep.
Yeah,
there was a slightly different one called the Pacer, very similar in shape.
Okay. Yeah.
Anybody own one on the panel? I'm just curious.
I've got not this one, but I've got a different one. It's kind of, to me, it's an iconic watch in many ways, and I think it's a really cool one. They do some that are just way too big, to be honest. But the smaller ones, which strangely they do kind of prop them as ladies' watches, but in that size. But they're much more wearable. The smaller ones, they're just cool. I say it's an occasional wear for sure, but it's a wee bit funky.
That's a big
great to wear with a suit.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I've always liked it. I was thinking when I was searching for it, I didn't realize it was that film, because that film kind of killed the whole franchise, didn't it?
Let's not worry about the film. Let's skip past that. Let's just look at the watch.
I think they wore a Ventura in the first Men in Black, which would redeem the image of the Ventura in the MIB series, because the first one was definitely the best.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, John's saying it's horrible.
Okay.
Listen, John.
Let's and then it's Mark next. I don't know why I'm getting so confused here. Mark. Oh yeah, here we go. The first of the Rolexes, and this is the Pussy Galore GMT.
Yep. There was a comment by the Fears Watch enthusiast to use the 6538, and I'm sure we'll come to that. But we all know that Sean Connery is the best James Bond, and then I'm going to vote for Honor Blackman as the best Bond girl, and Honor Blackman wore the Rolex GMT. So whilst it's not a character watch in the film, it's definitely in Goldfinger, and as I would rate Goldfinger as one of the top 2 Bond movies, why not? And any watch that has the nickname Pussy Galore has got to be high on anyone's list. So yes, it's a fairly conventional first generation GMT master, but it's there in the movies. It's been proven to be in the movies. It was even in a Rolex poster. So let's all have great praise for the GMT master as worn by Pussy Galore.
Because for me, if you said famous film worn Rolex GMT, I'd go straight to Apocalypse Now, even though it was bezel-less, wasn't it? For Marlon Brando's character wore a bezel-less Rolex GMT in Apocalypse Now.
I haven't seen Apocalypse Now in a long time, but I do watch Goldfinger fairly often. It's a as I tend to be grumpy and not want to go out to party on New Year's Eve, Dr. No and Goldfinger or the Terminator movies are high on my list of things to watch on New Year's Eve.
Goldfinger's GoldenEye is actually one of my favorites of all time. But I haven't watched Apocalypse Now for ages because I bought the director's cut, and I also bought the director's cut of the original Blade Runner, thinking, wow, this is really gonna expand the film, but it just makes it tediously boring to watch the director's cut. It's like the original cut was obviously the best. It's I don't know if anybody's like a Blade Runner director's cut 5
No,
or whatever that they've done out.
I'm with you with that perfectly, Sam.
Yeah. I was watching it, I remember this film being a lot less tedious. I think I get it. It's a robot. Oh, that's a spoiler. Anyway.
The director's version can be indulgent. That's why.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. Like the 3 hour. Have you ever seen the 3 hour cut of Waterworld with Kevin Costner? There's like a
no. Why? Why would you even?
That's unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
I watched the 3 hour epic that was Zack Snyder's. What was that one with Superman and Batman?
Yeah, but the Snyder cut was pretty good actually. You thought it was a bit. It was more darker. I actually like that. I actually like.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I had to watch it in 2 sittings though. To be fair, so
okay.
The original Suicide Squad was a great sort of 3-step movie: sit down, turn off brain, enjoy. And if there was beer involved, it was so much better.
I didn't mind the so I'm gonna go, let me see, I'm gonna go like a deep cut here. So this is modern, this is only just come out, and it's a TV series rather than a movie. But has anybody watched Black Mirror?
Yes.
Yeah, epic. It's like one of my favorite TV series. They only make like one series every 3 years, don't they, or something, after Netflix bought it. The latest version of the one, they're each. Does anybody know, Dave? You know Black Mirror, but does anybody else know what Black Mirror is?
Mm-hmm.
It's an imagine a Twilight Zone, but a lot darker and usually a lot more horror themed.
Yeah. Imagine the Twilight Zone without the Twilight.
Yes, exactly. With all darkness. It's an incredible TV. It's highly recommend. The first seasons were shot. Were British made, so some of them are like British stories, but they're relatable. But when Netflix bought them, they do like one that's shot with an English cast and one that's shot with an American cast. Anyway, so there's a space themed story, and it's actually quite cool because they are spacemen that it's sort of set in like a retro futuristic 1960s, and they're spacemen. They're in this space station, but they have robot versions or replica versions that walk around in the day. And in order to switch back and forth, they use a watch. And I thought, Todd, you might find this interesting because I'm pretty sure the watches were previous before they hollowed them out. Speed timers, vintage speed timers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
so they're actually
weird.
really cool. Yeah, and they've got the original, the shaft rally band, shaft rally strap from the Shaft film, the metal rally strap. But they're so cool. They're like a pivotal part of this season. I thought, if this one is extremely dark, but you might like it because they look almost like speed timer cases. I thought.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so this is like their lifeline when they get the little thing on the watch. The whole film is not the whole. It's a film length, but it's a TV show. But yeah, they get the little beep beep and they come past. So that's my modern one. And see, Kent came back and he said he loves Black Mirror. So
welcome back, Kent.
Welcome back, Kent. He's coming in with an Oppenheimer joke here. He says the ending really bombed. Anyway, okay. Right,
that's,
so
that's actually worthy of the ban hammer.
You gotta ban him again.
Yeah,
it's the first ever ban and reban in our. Okay, so we're going right. So Todd, we're back round to you, Seiko Todd, and this is the legend. I think this actually might be the reissue, but I'll let you tell the tale.
Oh, okay. No, this is just another movie watch that Hamilton made for 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's just the design is completely unique. Now, would I wear this? Probably not, but I wouldn't mind having. Maybe the reissue. I don't know what I'd do with it though, so I've never kind of pursued it, but.
Yeah,
but it's not very expensive. I mean, what $800 right there, right?
Yeah, I think this is the reissue from the 2000s. I think I even remember them doing this reissue.
Yeah,
but yeah, it doesn't show it there, does it? But it's got additional clocks.
Yeah, it's got additional little quartz. Watch it. There you go. Home time, GMT.
Is that departure time? Is that
or space time? I forgot what it is.
Yeah, really cool.
That's kind of cool.
I mean, it is. It's.
How big is that thing, though?
Oh,
it's like a cuff, to be honest, more than a watch.
Yeah, it's like
it looks like
a bracelet, like a big.
Have you seen one, Dave? Have you seen one of these?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've not seen that. I've seen the reissues of them. I remember the reissues of them. They're actually really cool.
Yeah.
For me, that's when Hamilton were a little bit in their prime, was that they actually were putting these kind of things out. Nowadays, they do sanitize it a little bit more, to be fair, but they did a lot of stuff around about that mid-90s through to about probably 2010, round about there, where there was loads of really cool reissues they did that just were like this, completely impractical, probably hardly sold any. And if you've got one now, it's a little bit of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Is it the whole thing quartz, or is there a mechanical movement for the main dial area?
I think that one was all quartz, if I remember rightly.
I think so.
I think for $800 it would have to be.
It was made of
for that much money.
As well. Yeah, titanium with a 36 mil with a 77 mil lug to lug.
Well, it's a bracelet.
It's a bracelet, so I don't think that really counts.
Where does my neck? On my neck.
You're gonna do a Rihanna?
Yeah, do a Rihanna.
So next back to you, Dave. And this, I didn't realize this film. I haven't heard of this film before, and I will watch it because I love the watch. But this is your next pick, which is
from Lucy in the Sky. For starters, it's absolutely an amazing movie. Not one that at all kind of made the cinema circuits and stuff like that, but it's actually Natalie Portman is amazing in it. Effectively, it is a bit of a look. It's quite dark, has to be said. It's kind of taken a look at, she's an astronaut. She's been into space, and it's really about how her mental well-being suffers from it, from kind of like disassociation and separation and all sorts of stuff. And the X-33 plays quite a big thing in it, because she spends a lot of time working out about where she is and where she wants to be and all sorts of stuff. And it's kind of a bit of a sad movie, to be fair, because it's about her kind of descent into mental illness and stuff like that after it, which again also shows that it affects everybody. It's not just about certain quarts of people, but it can be some of the most successful in life. So it's an amazing movie. But X-33 is, for me, a really underrated watch. It's the Speedmaster that gets kind of slagged off a little bit because, quote, it's a digital watch. Yep, sure it is, but it's also the current, and has been for a long time, issue for European Space Agency for all their astronauts. And if you've never played with one, this is the picture here. This is the original version, which did, to be fair, the original one suffered a little bit from the LCDs not lasting an amazing amount of time. But there's new iterations of it now as well. But you can still pick up these original ones for not a lot of money, to be honest, if you get one with a good module as well.
Yeah, I bought the original one. So this one here, if this is the movie one, this is the Gen 2 because it has the Gen 1 had an actual proper crown on it, and I had the Gen 1. And I didn't really warm to it only because there wasn't a lot of contrast between the LCD and the hands. There was just something that just didn't. Well, I would definitely buy one of the new ones, but the new ones, the Skywalkers, they've gone crazy on the secondhand market. I should have picked one up a couple of years ago when they were like 1,000, a couple of thousand, maybe 2,500. But as soon as they went up in the Dragon or whatever, they shot up in price. So, but yeah, I love the new ones. I would consider buying a new one, the Skywalker X33.
The X33 is the only watch my local Omega boutique will not set up for you. They go, we don't understand this watch. You're on your own.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my one actually, I bought it from the local AD. Well, he's not an AD; he's a local jeweler. He's a second hand, obviously, and it had one of those Omega boxes that basically disintegrated. They had like flock lining, but the alarms often go on it, and the alarm had gone. But true to his word, they replaced it all inside. The alarm is ear piercing.
Oh, the alarm's it's not quiet. You'll not miss the alarm, put it that way. And
right.
The trick to set them up actually is you don't set it up the obvious way because you think I'll set the time and then everything will relate to that. You actually have to set up like a background master time, and then everything takes a reference point from it, because you effectively set this internal clock and then you set up behind or ahead of the internal clock depending on what you want to show in various displays. So once you suss that bit out, which is the bit, to be fair, you always forget, you just try and set the time in it and then can't understand why you set the time and an hour later it shows you a completely different time. But as long as you set up that internal master time, it's a wee beauty.
It really is a mission watch. This is the modern tool watch.
Yeah.
The
manuals
it's actually used as a tool.
Yeah. And that amazing YouTube video of the astronaut on the International Space Station taking one apart and replacing the pushers. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
In zero gravity. One of the best things ever put on YouTube for watch fans. Okay, so great. So next, and then I think it's Pete up next, isn't it? Pete, This is your Doctor Strange.
My Doctor Strange. And again, I'm just going with the theme of I just picked watches which I'd like to own. JLC Master Ultra Thin Perpetual. It's just a gorgeous watch. It's everything that JLC can do. I think this one does tie in a little bit more to the movie than perhaps my other options, in that the choice of the watch and the original character. I don't even know the guy's name. No, the person that becomes Doctor Strange.
Stephen Strange.
Yeah. I think this is the watch that someone like him would probably choose, because everyone around him would have something else and he'd feel that he was like smarter than them because he bought this watch. And then the way it gets broken, and this one does tie really nicely to the movie. And yeah, I just really like this watch. That's basically about it.
I definitely liked the watch, but I thought the best part of the Doctor Strange movie was his whole drawer full of watch winders arranged horizontally so they wouldn't work.
Yeah, and he fixes is it the second one where he actually fixes the watch, doesn't he? He fixes the crystal, but without using magic. I think I remember there's a scene where he fixes it, but
I've always
Yeah.
wondered about that point Mark raised, because automatic watches work in space because it's the inertia, not the gravity, that makes the rotor spin. So surely a watch winder should work if it was lying down,
No,
because
I think
it's not gravity, it's inertia that's making the rotor
But
spin.
But I think the difference would be when it's laying down and the rotor, the movement is so slow on a watch winder, whereas when you're in space and you're moving around dynamically, you'll
Okay.
tend to kick that going, where
Right.
that movement might be just so slow that the rotor will spin with it.
So if it's just that it's So his
I
problem
think it's
wasn't the
also even on Earth, if you even when you get gravity, if you put it so that the watch sits upright, it's not very efficient, because as much as it's not gravity helps on Earth, but it's the inertia of the mass of the thing falling down. And if it's on flat and it's on a flat plane, if it's going round, it's not going round at enough speed to actually make the rotor want to spin. So if it's got to be effectively so that the watch faces up and down, so that when it goes round the watch, the weight of the oscillator actually drops, albeit on Earth gravity helps, but in space it'll still move because the weight of the rotor will drop it.
Yeah. I must say, I'd always just thought, again, like you, Todd, silly scene, doesn't make any sense. It's not going to work. But then they were talking about some astronaut came back and said, oh yeah, my automatic works absolutely fine. Perfectly good power reserve, in zero gravity. And then I thought, oh, I wonder if, why would that therefore be different?
Yeah.
Thinking about it, actually, if they were in space and they were lying flat, it might work, because it depends. Your event horizon and your parallax changes, because when you're in zero gravity, there's no up and down.
Or what you're saying is he did actually lose time, but because they're moving so fast, the relativistics meant that you didn't notice.
Yes, sure.
This is an experiment that he's doing.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Need to tap up Ellen. We need the Elon. We need to borrow a rocket.
So that could be like a new Seiko tagline. Seiko, in space, your watch might actually be on time.
In space, your bezel might align.
For everybody watching, there'll be a textbook available and a link below, so you can keep
Yeah. So actually, Sam's come in with some JLC related trivia. So Christian Bale wore a JLC Reverso Grand Tally in the first two installments of the trilogy, and a JLC Grand Date for the final film. So this is the Dark Knight trilogy. And then he's saying that Val Kilmer in Batman Forever wore a JLC Reverso in two different sides. Oh, there you go. That's really cool. Thanks for that, Sam.
That's cool.
Okay, so next up, Mark, this is your last one, I think. Oh. Here's the classic has to be on here.
Well, yes, you do have to have the classic 6538 Submariner. Unlike the Pierce Brosnan with the Omega, where the watches were characters, certainly in Dr. No, it was just a watch. And I'm not a Rolex fan, but if you have to talk about Rolex, the granddaddy almost, the original watch that could go in the sea, go in the casino, go in the bedroom. What other watch would you need? Definitely that original Submariner, or that very early Submariner, was just a perfect fit for the character of James Bond at the time.
Yeah. They haven't got a picture of it with its undersized NATO, have they? Because it's quite famous for having that NATO that was too small for the look of it. Yeah, great.
And it's an obvious pick, but if I'm going to do the GMT Master from Goldfinger, I've got to do the Granddaddy. You've got to do the Sub.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then Todd V, I think your last pick here is Ryan Gosling in Grey Man, which is great.
And it's through the movie, I kept getting distracted by this watch. I was like, this watch. I felt like I said what I said before with Brad Pitt's in Bullet Train. Like, it would never survive what was going on in this movie. But it was such a good looking watch. It kept catching my eye, and it's one of those ones that just has a classic, beautiful look. And I was like, man, that is. I go back to what I think I've said with Dave before. I like tag, but I don't pay tag retail. I would buy it secondhand because then I wouldn't feel like I was getting ripped off. But it's a great watch.
Okay, so I'm now amazed now that you were concentrating on the watch and not Chris Evans' epic mustache. I thought you would have been straight into the mustache.
His mustache was okay. It wasn't really that impressive.
So you didn't have mustache envy. It was still, it was like a starter mustache.
Yeah, that's a good one for beginners. It's cute.
Yeah. I actually really like this film. I suppose the watch. Did it make sense though for a hitman that was?
No, he swam. He was splashing around in water. I'm not even sure what the water rating is on that Carrera with the leather band, but great watch.
Yeah, great watch. And then I think my last one is this. So I only recently watched this film, and I don't know that I really liked it, but I was trying to do ones that people weren't expecting, and this was 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford. If anybody's seen it, he's a CIA analyst, and his local he's stationed. I think it's his small site where he's supposed to be based. Everybody gets killed in there, and it's just him left. So it's basically 3 days of him trying to find out what happened. And Faye Dunaway's in it, and it's one of those sort of old spy films where the main character is really horrible to the leading lady. It's the same with Steve McQueen in The Getaway, where he's a bit rough with Ali McGraw. But he's a bit. It's not very. They couldn't remake it, I don't think. And the watch is awesome, and it's on this Bun style strap as well, and it's quite.
They made I think they made a TV series that was like a remake of Condor.
Did they?
Yeah, they have. They definitely have.
Yeah.
It's also a little bit like one of the scenes from one of the Bourne films where there was the CIA office in, I think it was maybe in Berlin, and everyone gets killed in it. Remember, he walks in as well. It's influenced quite a few movies, that one.
Yeah. It's actually. I mean, I probably need to rewatch it, but it's very, very. I thought actually his was a silver dial in it. But anyway,
you can see that original one there. If that's the film one, that's a black lung one because you can see the little logo on the dial.
Yeah,
that's the wee black lung logo. Or is it? Yeah, I think it looks like it.
Yeah, it looks
cool
awesome. Yeah, it doesn't explain
great
why.
On that strap.
Yeah, and then of course, Robert Redford's legendary for he wore that Seiko SKX009, didn't he, in the film that nobody's seen, where he's lost on a boat.
Matthew McConaughey wore a Doxa in one of those. What was that movie? He was an action guy. I can't remember it now. Clive Cussler film.
Yeah, it makes sense because Clive Cussler writes the Doxas into his books. Yeah.
All his Dirk Pitt stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
So
it was Dirk Pitt. That's what it was called.
Yeah, Dirk Pitt.
So there was also the movie Raise the Titanic a long time ago. So that might have had a Doxa in it as well.
Probably did. Been
Those are great looking watches.
Probably still too early for certain jokes on that matter, isn't it?
No.
Yeah. but the film predates the submarine.
Pete's about to get banned. Sahara, that's it. That's the name of the movie, Sahara.
Yeah, Sahara. Oh boy. Oof.
Great watch though.
We've got one last one from Dave before we finish, and we've also got 2 extras. But let's just see because some people have put some good. So Thomas Burnett, the Alaska Northroscaph from Jaws. Yeah. David, you see these reissues? Was it a Scottish guy that bought the company? Ulster.
It is actually, yeah. He bought the rights to the name and stuff, and he's kind of brought out a variety of watches, but he's also done a reasonably faithful reproduction of this watch as well. Not huge money from memory, £600-700, something like that. So yeah.
Because I bought an Ulster or whatever you say it, watch, but it was just, I think at one time they were just rebadging just the same dive watch as everybody else was with a plastic bezel. Stephen's saying, "Hey gents, I have the Pulsar P 2900 stainless steel live and let die LED watch." Okay, awesome.
Nice.
Oh, it still works.
Cool
That's
watch.
great.
That's the one that that's the one that the PSR is based off, the current Hamilton PSR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on the last show, didn't we? Somebody was mentioning that it should be reissued,
Cool,
and it was.
cool watch, that original.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Gerard Perigo has a similar one too. I think it uses the same.
Casket.
Mechanism. Yeah.
You've got that casket, haven't you, Dave?
Yeah, it's cool, Dave.
Well, Thomas's next comment is actually going to take us to Dave's last pick, which is the Ripley. This is a watch that I keep kicking myself that I never bought the reissue when it was out, because
even the reissue these days is, it's limited. It's pretty hard to get as well. This is just a cool watch, from the point of view of it's like a design like no other. Gigario is, or was, should I say, in terms of his watch designs, pretty out there when it came to it, pretty sci-fi, very much like those concept cars and concept aircraft and everything from the kind of 60s and 70s as well, very futuristic looking. Couldn't have thought of a better watch to kind of use for aliens. And it wasn't just this one, because this was the one that gets nicknamed Ripley, but there's also the other characters wore them as well. I think it was the black and red one was worn.
Bishops,
the Bishop as well. And the reissue was again pretty good and pretty faithful to the original as well. The originals, if you get one, A, you'll pay a fortune for them, and B, you need to be really careful with the pushers on them, because they were fragile then, and they're definitely even more fragile now. They haven't stood the test of time particularly well. The new one though is, or I say new, it's a good few years since it's been out now. But really little cool piece that, and it's not a particularly huge watch. It looks big there, but it's actually not particularly massive, and it wears very well on the wrist.
Yeah. The only person I know who's got one is TGV's got one, I think, and that's one that he keeps flirting with selling, but he keeps seeing the price go up. So somebody said the Hamilton X-Wind Chrono back in the day, I Am Legend. It was also in the awful flipping second Independence Day, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I do like those X-Wins. That's a nice looking watch.
Okay, let's see. We've probably got time for one more, so let's delve into the extras. We had the I had to put the cheeky one up. Is because I actually saw this in Japan, and that's the TV watch from Octopussy. I actually saw one of these in the Seiko Museum, so I'm still going to do my Seiko Museum. But the James Bond film certainly made it look a lot cooler than perhaps it was in real life.
Yeah, it was a monochrome LCD. It was not color in the real world. Yeah.
There's actually a guy on YouTube who's hacked a transmitter to, I think is it UHF or something, and to broadcast it. So he's actually filmed the YouTube and then put himself on the watch. He's actually found a working version of one, which is pretty cool. That was one. And then I think, Matt, this was your last pick. What your extra pick, wasn't it? The 2 speed.
It was either this or the Hoya Silverstone, but we have probably the genesis of the Moonwatch, the 2 references of Omega Speedmaster that went into space in NASA, left low Earth orbit. So this is, and I have to look at my notes, the 105.012 or the 145.012, the proper Moonwatch. And they were definitely important characters in the movie Apollo 13. So the real life watches actually found a role in the movie as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And then go on. We've got time for your last one. This is the.
So, the Hoya Silverstone was supposed to replace the Monaco, and of course it didn't, because no one has heard of the Silverstone anymore. But everyone still hears about the Monaco. I kind of prefer the Silverstone. I like the rounded corners. In a way, its analog for Omega would be the Speedmaster Mark IIs, which failed to replace the Moonwatch. But I think the slightly softer corners make it a much better looking watch for my taste than the Monaco, but clearly it didn't make it. So, and the Monaco is such a classic now. It would be nice if Tag Heuer brought the Silverstone back, but I don't think they will. But as an alternative,
And this was from
and for a Formula One film based on the 1976 Formula One season where Niki Lauda crashed and very nearly died at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. I still, one of the best motor racing films ever made, based on a true story, and yeah, it's a beautiful looking watch.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, we hit the hour. Thank you, everyone, for your picks in the comment section, and thanks to the panel for all your great picks for movie watches as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.